Hello, welcome everyone. This is today is November 23, 2021. This is the bi-weekly release engineering meeting hosted by SIG Release. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded to the cloud and is bounded by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. So be mindful of anything that you want to say or that you don't want to find it recorded over the public internet. We have a couple of agenda items for today. I think we should get started with today's topics. So first, I'd like to give a few minutes so that anyone new would like to introduce themselves.
Hello, this is a hippie hacker from New Zealand, and I work with II. We do a lot of the CNCF's strategic initiative work, and one of the projects we've been asked to help with is the release process for our artifacts, and we're trying to reduce the spend that we have distributing them. So they can go across multiple cloud providers as far as the registries for downloading it and the artifacts that we produce as a community. So Rian is probably also here from II. It's 4:30 in the morning, so apologies for the not much video. I'm driving into the office in order to maybe get some better light.
Welcome, Hippie. We're happy to have you here, and thanks for pulling in the early hours. Anyone else?
I'm also new to the meeting with hippie hacker, as you mentioned.
Rian, your volume is kind of low. If you were saying something, sorry.
Turn it up a little. That should be better. I'm in the team with hippie hacker, and I'm also new to this meeting.
Awesome, welcome, Rian. So anyone else who's new who would like to say hello?
Hey everyone, I'm also fairly new to the meeting. I've been into a couple of meetings before, but just as an audience at the moment, so fairly new. Hello everyone.
Welcome, Priya.
Hello.
Anyone else who wants to say hello? Okay, so feel free if you want to say hi later. You're welcome, of course. So going to the first order of business, let's go to release manager's update with who's here. Veronica, do you want to?
Yeah, hello. So we're preparing today. Navarin and I are preparing today to cut the branch, and we have a list of duties that we haven't started yet because we're optimizing to overlap with American schedule. But yeah, so far no interesting updates other than that we're busy with that. Hopefully everything goes smoothly, and yeah, we'll let you know if we need anything or if something goes wrong.
One thing to call out there is there was some discussion around the publishing bot rules and all that stuff in the channel. There is a PR open for there's a PR open discussing like what to do, where to put the rules and stuff, but there's some stuff that's already documented in the release engineering handbooks. So if anything is missed or like during like that, it's happening around the time that the branch is cut. So if just like be aware of it, but we're going to be hanging out on the channel too, because I think it's probably not properly documented right now, but we know it's a need. Just want to make sure we don't miss it.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for the heads up.
So any questions for the branch managers who are cutting the release today? Okay, awesome. So I see an item in the open discussion items by Leo to discuss to go over the CI signal project board, but I propose that we open the floor to the to Hippie and Rian because it's really late for them. So to discuss a little bit, and then we can go over the CI signal project board so that they can leave and go to have some sleep. Sounds good. So okay, so take it away. Floor is yours.
Thanks for that. I'll have some support from Rian as I'm driving. So if the audio is not great, that's why. We are trying to assist the Kubernetes community to coordinate across several different SIGs in order to coordinate our release process, specifically the distribution of our Docker, our containers, our OCI images, and our artifacts. And I wanted to make sure that we reached out to the appropriate groups within our community. And I think coordinating with SIG release engineering is probably one of the most important ones there, to get a real good feel for the release process and ensuring that the steps that are currently in place are taken into effect in a eventual migration process to where we currently push to a single registry at Google. We're hoping to find a new process where we push to multiple registries and use the published, some of it via the BGP tables, but some of it via what vendors have provided us in order to send folks to the correct registry. For example, people in China cannot get to the artifacts of the community because it's only with a single vendor. However, if we were to start allowing our community to have multiple mirrors for things that were able to be accessed, then the rest of the planet in China would also be able to participate. This is also a cost issue. Our donations from currently from Google are carved into quite heavily. Somewhere in the 40 to 50% range of the donation goes towards distributing artifacts. And if we can reduce that cost by moving these things closer to our audience, that would be great. We have a few iterations of the underlying technical things on the SIG Kates and SIG Kates. Rian, can you help me remember our other team, SIG Kates?
SIG Kates Infra, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
As far as different pieces of software and ways to orchestrate that, but we need the right handholds from this team, and I would look forward to trying to find what those handholds are as a group, and also maybe have someone step up as a liaison between these different groups that can coordinate with II in order to make sure that this process includes every team's needs and evolves as our community does.
So liaison wise, you have multiple. At the bare minimum, you have the leads that are focused on the release engineering side. So myself, Sasha, Carlos, and Adolfo. I think in particular, a release manager of note that would be a good liaison potentially, if he is willing and interested and has the time, is Arnaud, because Arnaud is like the perfect crossover between Kate's Infra and release engineering.
That sounds like a wonderful idea. we will reach out to Arno and
But,
also.
but Arno is also on the call, so I will give him an opportunity.
Oh, sorry, I can't see anything, so
Yeah,
I'm just
no, it's
kind
all
of blindly navigating by feel here.
So one of the big things that we're trying to dig into with this is the policy side. And that's where we really need to work together with SIG release and with lots of other SIGs. We've talked about a different handful of models, like the Apache Software Foundation has a mirrors program where you can kind of like sign up to be a mirror. They give you a layout of like what you need. So we need to, we've had lots of calls and discussions about this on SIGCADE's infra. And we need to put some thought behind what we want that to look like. There's different opinions from different folks. So I think Aaron is on the side of we should be able to have just proud jobs that handle replication to other clouds and other registries. Some folks like the idea of publishing everything to different clouds. So instead of like the replication thing, it's like, here's the list of all the providers we publish to. So there's pros and cons for all of them, but that's one of the things we're going to have to come up with, is the policy aspect. It's like people are going to come to us from different orgs, different cloud providers. They're going to ask, do we provide you with a S3 bucket, a GCS bucket for you to push to? Do we provide credentials for a registry? Do we have to provide a contact? So those are the types of things we really need to dig into, is like, who owns this account that is replicated to? And is this done through a credits program? Is this done through a standalone community thing? A lot of unanswered questions, but specifically on the policy side, we've been digging into the tech work for a very long time and haven't put much effort into the policy. And that's really where we need to focus.
So I think, part of it to your point is, there's the credits program, which I'm curious to see what the current steps are. And I'm sure that's a longer discussion. Policy wise, workflow wise, I would love to see every registry be treated equally. Right. So if we're pushing to all, like, we have the set of the registries and we're pushing to them, and that's it. The way it stands today is I think the way that could be easier today right now, at least, is to do the replication, as Aaron was mentioning, I think, and then moving to a push to any registry kind of level of support. What I'm hearing is I will need to move a little faster on the improvements to the promotion tools. Today, the promotion tools will only support pushing to GCR registries. As you know, there is also a Google Artifact Registry, which we need to build and support for that as well. So I think I see a few phases of this, right? I think supporting Artifact Registry makes a lot of sense next, and then everything else, right? And then everything else, if everything else is a replication job of, and we do it per provider, that way we can kind of like play around with, if the provider has specific needs or, access things that may differ from the existing jobs on GCR, then we can address them in a separate job and then find a way to kind of merge the streams eventually. At the same time, we could also just figure it out in totality for the promotion tools for all registries, because really the promotion tool should support any OCI compliant registry, right? That should be the goal, right? So I should just be able to point it at foo registry and it should work, right? But that is, I can almost guarantee that's not the case today.
In order to try to spread this out as much as possible, we have engineering efforts here. So if we want to load that onto I can find the right human to coordinate for that, unless you're super excited and want to hold that as far as the different pieces of software that need to be written.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense to I think it makes a lot of sense to collaborate on it. What I want to make sure of is that anyone coming into it, like that, this is I only say it to say like this is one of the more critical pieces of infrastructure for the project, so that anyone coming into it is aware of the warts of the existing tool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think I'm happy to have support there. For sure, but as long as we're tiptoeing a little bit.
Absolutely.
So could you give an update on how the redirection thing that you're working on is going along? So is it for
Rian, since I'm driving, can you drop the summary to the 5 or 6 different things that we put together and load tested that Caleb did? I think that particular document kind of outlines all the different approaches. As far as like conversation and feedback, I think that's really been in Slack. And I don't know that there's been a strong decision. I think we were kind of holding off doing anything heavier with that engineering side until, at least for II, we got past the cloud credits launching, because that is now there. And I think, Rian, if you can get a chance, go ahead and drop that link to the CNCF Cloud Credits Program URL. It's like on the front of the CNCF. There's a blog post, a couple other things, but we can. It's just kind of coordinate. I would like to have this provider in order for these things as a community, and then that actually goes to Ihor and myself, and then we can turn around and coordinate the connection and relationship. It's all relationships, but we end up having a contract in place to be sure that the community isn't left when people change jobs and stuff, that the commitment is a formal one between us and the vendors.
So what just happened is what's happened, excuse me, every time this has come up is we jump right back into talking about the tech. I'd like to leave this conversation with a clear way that we're going to figure out what a policy looks like for this, because sure, we can start with like 1 or 2 mirrors or cloud providers, but like from a community standpoint, like other clouds and other areas and other people are going to want to, it's going to be an influx of, oh, like you're replicating this. Like we need to have that worked out before we really go much further. Am I making sense? Every time this comes up, I just feel like we always jump right back into the tech and don't talk through the policy.
Oh, I started with the policy though, like how I think it should go. So I mean, I think, you know, specifics around how you want the policy to work, I don't think will be handled in a meeting. That will likely be a proposal. But I think it needs to be, so one, we need to have a reasonable level of control over any infrastructure that we get as a result. So I see this more as a funding as opposed to a pure ownership thing. Ideally, there is also a level of support from vendors, because this is, you know, it's you know, it becomes an ask to learn GCP and AWS and Azure, and you know, and the list goes on and on. So how can we ease that burden? Ideally, you know, I think for, you know, Azure and AWS, for example, right, we get some credentials, right, and an account, and we kind of like go about our business. But it would be nice to have a level of support from the vendor, right? I think where we expand to first is like where is the biggest need? Like, how do we answer that question? Where's the biggest need? Where's the biggest cost coming from? And if that is, you know, if that's China, say, right, you know, we want to try to address that first. I still think that, you know, replication to start makes sense. And that is until which time, you know, until such time that the tooling supports pushing to registries that are not GCR. So I think unfortunately we got to the tooling because the policy is dependent on the functionality of the tools today.
On the beginning of the policy discussion, I think knowing the humans that want to be involved, do we want to circle back to having it during this time, or do we want to have a policy discussion specific meeting?
We can have a policy specific meeting. If you send that to release, you can send it to SIG release. If you're sending out a meeting invite, you can send it to that mailing list. You can send it to the release managers mailing list, which is the group that's specifically focused on release engineering day to day. And even more specifically, right now the leads have their hands in the pot primarily around artifact promotion. But the widest list, the widest list is SIG release. The more narrow list is release managers at Kates.io, and then the even more narrow one would be SIG release leads at Kubernetes.io.
Also, we have a KEP that we're working to go ahead and push as an initial rallying point around that. So I might push that as a PR, as an initial discussion point for us to have that meeting, just as a bare bones.
Yeah, perfect. And add a just make sure that we add SIG release as a participating SIG for the KEP.
Absolutely, absolutely. It will be a couple of places.
Sweet.
Thank you for having us today.
Anytime.
Maybe not.
Maybe not this time.
Not this time.
Fair.
It's a lovely day in the neighborhood, but it is also early. I look forward to having everybody who's able to come out to New Zealand and visit us at the Imaginarium and the new iPad. I just got to stay there for the first night last night. We're be running some of the cooking things for the contributor celebration from that place.
Nice.
Looking forward to so it'll be virtual this year, but sometime in the future, if anybody from the community makes it this far, we'll put them up. I'll host them and have some fun conversations.
Yeah. I have to take you up on that.
Right.
All right. Anyone has any questions or wants to add something? So I hopefully I'll try to go to the next Kates Infra meeting, and so we can chat further along.
I'm gonna jump in here. I stuck something in the release manager updates. So I'll do this one really quick. It's just about ownership overall. So I opened up a PR that's kind of like built off of me PRing myself out of certain things, and then also trying to kind of shift the review obligations to certain people, right? So if you are on this call or you listen to this call later and you are a release manager associate, you're equally responsible for doing reviews as the release manager approvers are. So what this PR does is a few things for anyone who is for the top level of K release. We're removing the release engineering approvers as reviewers, which means the de facto reviewer for K release, if an owner's isn't specified in a subfolder, will be the release manager associates. So if you're a release manager associate, please be aware of that. For any areas where aliases did not, for any aliases that covered areas that no longer existed, the aliases were removed. For any areas where the reviewers were the same set of people as the approvers, I dropped the reviewers alias and added the release engineering reviewers instead. So what that means is, so I think, for anyone who is doing APR, who is kind of in and around these teams, the tendency is to like assign a few people and then CC release engineering anyway, right? So it's not like the entire team isn't seeing the PR. But what we want to say is the first responsibility of doing the PR review should go to the release manager associates or anyone who is in the reviewers tab. This is a little bit to federate out the workload, but also to give release manager associates opportunities to do more reviews and build up that approver muscle. Right, we'd like to see all of you in approvers, and this also goes for folks that are not necessarily on the release manager associates groups, but want to become. So if you ever are interested in one of our areas and you feel you have the time to dedicate to it, feel free to PR yourself into a reviewers within owners, and we can have a discussion about it. I think that this kind of a tangential conversation was around the CI reporter tool, which Leonard's going to get into in a second, and I wrote kind of a close statement on that issue to say, like, if you never get to review, you will never review. You will always essentially be beaten by the people who are assigned by a bot to do the reviews, right? So putting the CI signal team in that review spot is meant to have them build up that reviewer muscle. The same is true for the for the release notes team that are marked as reviewers on the changelog in Kubernetes. So the idea is that if the bot is tagging you, that it's not a question of like, do we think you have the ability to do the review or not? We are saying that we do believe you have the ability to do the review, which is why you are in the owner's file in the first place, right? So if you ever have questions about how to do reviews, should I do the review? If the bot is tagging you, you should do the review. If you feel like you cannot do the review, feel free to escalate, or ask some questions. Like a perfectly reasonable review is, this looks sound. I don't know this code area well. I have some questions about XYZ, right? And all of the people that you have tagged will see that, during their review process. So asking questions is also a great way to do review, right? And it may be a question, maybe several sets of questions that we're not thinking of as we're doing our reviews, right? So don't be afraid to do reviews. If the bots are telling you to do reviews, you should do reviews. And I will be, unless there are blocking concerns, and I don't believe so because I discussed with the leads already. Sasha and Carlos have already approved. If there are no blocking, like super blocking concerns, I'm going to merge this PR during this meeting. So I will leave it there. Any questions, comments, concerns, objections? All right, we will merge. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. It's also worth noting that it's healthy to have like separate pools of people reviewing and approving things. So good things from all angles about this. Okay, so if there are no questions around the owner's update, we can go to the next topic, the signal project board. I know, is Leo here?
Yes, hello.
Okay, do you want to share your screen or anything, or?
If you could share your screen, it would be good because I'm joined over the smartphone, so I cannot share it now.
I see.
Yeah, so we created this project board under Kubernetes to track basically feature requests and ideas about the CI, and also later on issues about the CI signal report tool. I hope most of you are familiar. So I posted like 2 weeks ago a notification into Slack that we have now this project board and that we can discuss at this meeting today some of the feature requests. So there's one column. So this is the under discussion column, which at the moment contains the ideas. At the moment, only myself provided some ideas, but we already discussed this also in the CI Signal team. So this is not only like my ideas, this is also reflecting from like the discussion that we had previously. So I was just thinking that we can maybe briefly go like over all the cards. I don't know. And just discuss if it makes sense to create an issue and to add this to the CI Signal project later on. So the idea would be that after this meeting, we can transform those nodes into issues and then just work on the issues.
Sure, sounds good.
Just one quick update from my side. Hossein is speaking. So yeah, this board initially was on my private user space on GitHub. So I put it, under K user space. So not all the user stories which are closed are fully migrated here. So it doesn't really represent our current status. Just want to add that update regarding it. Yeah.
Okay, just just guide me, Leo. Which one do you want to discuss first? And we'll go.
I'm gonna jump in for a hot second here and say that it's great to see this board, but the work technically does not exist because it is only stored as cards and not as GitHub issues. So I think my first request before we continue with this board or obviously offline to transform all of these into issues so that we can actually
exactly. Yeah, that would be the next step. So yeah, we are going through all these cards, and yeah, as I said, they were initially issues on my under my own user space, but yeah, we need to migrate or create new user stories. Issues.
All right. So which one do you want to go over first?
I would just start under the discussion column and with the first one, so detailed test grid report. So it's a bit more described in detail, but essentially at the moment, when we run the CI Signal report, we only get like an overview. So we see, okay, 5 tests are failing, 2 are flaky or whatever. And what would be like this card or this issue would just to give more information. So to like get more information about the failing tests and just maybe also like get more of the history. So how many failures happened recently, and if maybe it's a temporary test with only like a couple of runs until it disappears again. So maybe it's not so important. So the first card is basically just to improve the test grid report to give a bit more details to it. So yeah, I think this is kind of straightforward.
Yeah, so if I understand it correctly, it's not duplicating the words, it's just extracting the information about which ones are failing and putting those forward, right? Yes. So that we get a bit more transparency behind the CI Signal report tool. So we don't only have like the numbers like 5 are flaky or so, because sometimes tests are flaky, but they are like temporary tests, so they will disappear again. So maybe they're not so significant. And yeah.
So I guess a question here: have you? I know that y'all have been working on integrating some of the review suggestions that I made on the initial migration PR. One of them is around integrating this with like the existing test grid package that we have. But prior to running releases, the release managers will run a command that I guess is it still test grid shot? It's not test grid shot anymore. It's Krell test grid or something.
Yeah.
Right. So we had a tool called test grid shot, which would essentially snapshot all of the test grid boards, as well as let you know, or the relevant test grid boards, as well as let you know what was failing. So I think it would make a lot of sense to see how to integrate that functionality, because it sounds like it'll give you what you need.
Just one note on that. So that one has been, it started, the service it relies on to take the snapshots, has been failing, and I think right now it's practically dead for practical purposes. So
yeah, so not so much we like the snapshot functionality matters less. The readout of the boards is what they're looking for, right? So I think if you're looking for a readout of the board, it's already solved with one of our tools. So I think within K-Release package, test grid is probably what you need.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So but the different question, or another question, would be if we want to have this in the weekly or daily CI signal report. So maybe we don't need to add like a lot of new like code, but use like the old system and just integrate it to the CI signal report tool. So
exactly. And
okay.
Yeah, there was another question around what was it? Around the usage of that table writer package. And I think someone said that they didn't want to use it because it did not display well in Slack. I think posting in Slack.
That was me.
Yeah. So posting in Slack is not what we want. Ideally, we want something that has like higher fidelity, right? So posting a link to a PR that has a markdown file attached to it that has a CI signal report is maybe a better path, right? Because then over time we have them stored, right? It's not really about the Slack post, but like what's behind the Slack post, right? So if it's in a repo, it is in our history, and it's not, it's in our history forever, hopefully, right? So I think that may be a better approach. Like and this starts to lead you into, well, what if we could have a bot just kick a PR to some repo that drops the CI signal report every day, or updates the CI signal report, right?
Yeah. So basically on the left side, there's like one part, scheduled reports. So we are planning to have like I think Kubernetes infra, like a cluster where we have a cron job running to just push basically or trigger the CI signal report CLI, so that we publish these reports automatically, like with a bot, basically, if that's what you meant.
Yep.
So this is planned. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
So
yeah, so maybe the first card would be still like, is still valid, that we want to have like more details, but we don't need to rewrite a lot of logic. We can just reuse already existing packages, libraries. Okay.
Okay, do you want me to move the card to the backlog so that you can transform it to an issue?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Okay, so
the next card is about the GitHub report part. So currently we are scanning one project board under Kubernetes issue. So there's like the CI signal report, CI signal project board. So basically all issues that are on that project board will be scanned by this tool at the moment. And the problem is that we do not discover issues that somebody else reported or opened up. So if one of the CI signal guys opened up an issue, they're aware of the project board, so they connected to the project board. But if somebody else opens up an issue, this is more or less like undetected. So what would be like a better solution is that we scan more or less all the GitHub issues, and just be able to discover issues opened up by other people outside of CI signal.
I guess a question there is, how are you planning to parsing the issues and detecting it's something relevant to the CI signal report tool?
Yeah, so basically, I think we already have like a package available to use GitHub, the API and so on. So this would basically, I briefly went over the package that we have, and it does not have right now the ability, the option to scan all issues on Kubernetes, I think. So there will be probably a new method or like a new package under it, so that we are able to scan all GitHub issues, and then, yeah, so.
Yeah, but my question was more around, so would you need support of maybe adding a new thing to the issue templates, or so, or how are you planning to parse the actual body of the issue and trying to make sense of what's
yeah,
it should be kind failing test.
yeah, exactly. You can sort by labels, and you can also sort by date. So if it's like older than a year or half a year or something like that, you can, or like have this filter applied. And then, I mean, we could also think about maybe that we format the header of an issue, but I don't know if this is something that we want to do, but this could also lead to like that we have like a more or less like that the header of issue reports are always the same. I think at the end, the label should be enough to filter out the issues that we are looking for.
Okay.
So I guess a question would be, sorry, I might have missed it. What's the goal of the issue filtering? What are we trying to get out of this?
So this was basically what I said, like in the beginning, about discovering issues that we did not open ourselves. So because at the moment we only scan the project board from CI Signal, and only those issues on the project board will be scanned. So it's kind of difficult to like filter out new issues. It's yeah.
So I think prior to creating more tooling, I think that is a process fix. Before you're running the board, you should be triaging the Kubernetes issues to make sure they're on the board. If they're all on the board, then there's no issue, right? Then there's no need for additional functionality, right? But I think that's a process thing as opposed to something that should be solved with tooling.
So if it's possible to automatically link test grid flaky and failing tests to the project board, I think that would, as you said, solve probably the additional work or make it irrelevant. Is it possible to automatically link this to our project board when somebody opens up? Yeah,
it is not currently. So unfortunately, so the one of the gripes that I have about the GitHub issues and project boards and stuff like that, that for a project level, for a project level project board or a repo level project board, you can do some nice things. You can have issues like automatically like jump onto the board and stuff based on what status they're in, right? But for an org level board, which the CI Signal board is, like, you have the upside of being able to collect issues from multiple repos, but the downside that it doesn't necessarily listen to some of like the repo triggers as much as a repo level board would. So the issues won't automatically jump onto the board for you, unfortunately. But I do think that on any 1 day, week cycle, there are not so many issues on the board that we would need to solve them via automation. I do think that this is a process thing, right? Scanning, making sure that they're on the board, and then moving into, I think you'll find greater improvements to the process in different areas than skipping triage.
Okay. But okay, question now would, or maybe we have to think about it, or I have to think about it, or a CI Signal team has to think about how we can update or like change a bit the process, how we discover new issues, or like interact with our project board to make sure it's up to date. So this is like more the direction you're.
Yeah, I would be curious to hear how you're doing it today, because like what jumps out to me immediately would be sort by newest issue in Kubernetes, do a negative filter, do a filter for kind, the kind failing test or kind flake, and then see whether or not it's on the project board. There's also a filter like negative project colon whatever the project number is, and it'll give you whether or not it's on the project board. And then from there, you do a daily, or every 2 days or something, triage of that, make sure they're on your project board, and then it's in the report. Right.
Okay, so this is not yet defined on the CI Signal handbook, so maybe we can think about this more, like how we can define these queries and so on, and then update the handbook. Okay.
Yeah. I do think that that's a process thing.
Okay, so this card will basically be not moved to backlog, so we can delete this or maybe leave this for now. I don't know, whatever.
And I mean, realistically as well, we're heading into the latter part of the cycle. So I think a win would be transforming these into issues, and setting them up for the next team. Or if folks on this team are still interested in working on them afterwards, that's absolutely fine. But all I'm saying is think about the things that you will be able to accomplish by the end of the release cycle, and towards the latter part of the release cycle, it's less than you might think.
Yes. Yeah, we're thinking, because this is like kind of in the middle of the process, and next release will be a different team, and I'm not sure who will work on this team and if they're interested into improving this part. So I think it makes sense to like prioritize also the issues that we can like be able to finish in next weeks, and then have a nice version for the next team.
Yeah, final note is, so we were discussing on your PR about the owners, that it should be a good thing to add a little bit of Go experience required for the next CI Signal team, as the CI Signal team now owns the tool. So would be good to have the update on the handbook real soon about that, so that the next folks that come on board know that.
Yeah, I think that makes.
And just to be a little specific about this, make sure that any updates to that are a request for knowledge, not necessarily a requirement. These PRs can and will still be approved by release engineering that has the Go experience. I just want to make sure that as we invite new people to the team, or as new people consider the team, they don't feel that is a blocker for them. That's something that would disqualify them from the team. So any updates should say that it is a nice to have, not a requirement.
Okay, so we are a few minutes over time. If anyone wants to just add something quick before we go, otherwise we can call it for today.
We didn't get to cover the bomb stuff, but we'll pick it up in the next one.
Yeah, and we can put it offline and have any questions and whatever suggestions over there. So it was really nice to chatting with you all, and see you on the next engineering meeting.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.